The human child's laughter echoed through the crystal corridors of the Zephyrian palace as Princess Lyralei glided past the delegation quarters. Her silver hair caught the artificial sunlight streaming through the dome windows, and her violent eyes sparkled with practiced cruelty. Queen Seraphina watched from the observation deck above, her expression unreadable behind the ceremonial mask that covered the upper half of her face. Captain Noah Mitchell stood at attention beside the human ambassador's daughter, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. The 12-year-old girl had been drawing in her sketchbook for the past hour, completely absorbed in her work. Her brown hair fell in messy waves around her face, and her clothes bore the simple cut of human fashion that seemed almost primitive compared to the flowing robes of the Zephyrian court. Princess Lyralei approached with deliberate steps, her entourage of courtiers trailing behind like predators sensing wounded prey. The alien princess possessed beauty that defied human understanding, with features that seemed carved from moonlight and a presence that commanded attention. At 17, she had already mastered the art of political manipulation that would make seasoned diplomats envious. The human girl looked up as shadows fell across her drawing. Her green eyes widened slightly as she took in the magnificent creature before her, but she managed a polite smile. "Hello." Princess Lyralei tilted her head, studying the child with the same interest one might show a curious insect. What is this crude scribbling supposed to represent? Her voice carried the musical quality of her species, but the words themselves cut like sharpened glass. The girl held up her sketchbook, revealing a detailed drawing of the palace gardens. The artwork showed remarkable skill for someone so young, capturing not just the alien architecture, but the emotional essence of the space. "I was drawing the fountain. It's really beautiful here." Several courtiers snickered behind jeweled hands. Princess Lyralei's lips curved into a smile that never reached her violet eyes. "How quaint. Your people's artistic limitations are even more pronounced than we were told." She gestured dismissively at the drawing. "This infantile attempt lacks any understanding of dimensional harmony or chromatic resonance." Captain Mitchell's jaw tightened imperceptibly, but he remained silent. His role as protection detail for the human delegation required discretion above all else. The peace talks between Earth and Zephyr had taken months to arrange, and one wrong word could shatter the fragile diplomatic progress. The human girl's cheeks flushed red, but she kept her voice steady. "I know it's not perfect. I'm still learning." "Learning implies the capacity for improvement," Princess Lyralei said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "Your species has had centuries to develop beyond these primitive dabbles, yet here you are, producing work that wouldn't qualify as children's art on our world." She reached out and plucked the sketchbook from the girl's hands, examining it with exaggerated scrutiny. The courtiers laughed openly now, their alien features twisted with cruel amusement. One of them, a tall male with silver markings across his temples, leaned forward. "Perhaps we should display it in the children's wing of the Cultural Center, as an example of pre-evolutionary artistic expression." Captain Mitchell felt his protective instincts flare, but protocol demanded restraint. The human delegation walked a tightrope here, and any perceived aggression could be construed as an insult to the royal family. The girl was Ambassador's daughter, but she was also a child thrust into an adult world of political maneuvering. Princess Lyralei continued her examination of the artwork, making soft clicking sounds of disapproval with her tongue. "The perspective is fundamentally flawed. The color choices suggest a complete inability to perceive the emotional spectrum of light." She turned to address her entourage, while still holding the sketchbook. "This is what happens when evolution stagnates. They remain trapped in their limited sensory understanding." The human girl's hands clenched into small fists at her sides, but she kept her chin up. There was something in her posture that spoke of inner strength, a quality that caught Captain Mitchell's attention. This child possessed resilience that many adults would envy. From her vantage point above, Queen Seraphina leaned forward slightly. The movement was subtle, but it suggested a shift in attention. Her advisors flanked her on both sides, their expressions carefully neutral, but the air in the observation deck had grown tense. Princess Lyralei held the sketchbook higher, ensuring that everyone in the corridor could see it. "Tell me, little human, do your people actually consider this art? Or is it merely therapeutic activity for the cognitively limited?" Her voice carried clearly through the space, designed to maximize the humiliation. The human girl took a deep breath, and when she spoke, her voice carried a dignity that seemed far beyond her years. My name is Rebecca Adams. My father is Ambassador Adams, and I drew this picture because I think your world is beautiful. I wanted to remember it. The simple statement landed in the corridor like a stone dropped into still water, sending ripples of uncomfortable silence through the gathered crowd. Princess Lyralei's expression shifted, sensing that her prey had somehow managed to turn the tables. Human child's response carried no anger, no defensive posturing, just honest truth, delivered with quiet strength. The alien princess found herself holding a drawing created not from obligation or assignment, but from genuine appreciation for Zephyrian beauty. Captain Mitchell watched the exchange with growing admiration for the young girl's composure. Rebecca Adams was displaying the kind of diplomatic grace that seasoned ambassadors struggled to maintain under pressure. Her response had been perfect, acknowledging her identity, while refusing to be diminished by the princess's cruelty. The sound of footsteps on crystal stairs echoed through the corridor as Queen Seraphina began her descent from the observation deck. The queen moved with fluid grace down the spiral staircase, her ceremonial robes flowing behind her like liquid starlight. Every step created a soft chiming sound against the crystal floors, and conversations throughout the corridor gradually died away as courtiers recognized the approaching sovereign. Princess Lyralei's confident smirk faltered as she realized her mother had chosen to personally intervene in what should have been a minor diversion. Captain Mitchell straightened to full attention, recognizing the shift in dynamics. Queen Seraphina commanded absolute respect throughout the Zephyrian Empire, and her reputation for wisdom was matched only by her intolerance for cruelty disguised as superiority. The human delegation had been briefed extensively on royal protocol, but nothing in their preparation had covered this scenario. Rebecca Adams stood perfectly still, clutching her remaining art supplies with hands that trembled slightly. The weight of royal attention pressed down on the entire corridor, and even the most arrogant courtiers found themselves checking their postures and smoothing their robes. The queen's presence transformed the casual cruelty of moments before into something far more serious. Queen Seraphina reached the main floor and approached the group with measured steps. Her mask concealed her expression above the nose, but her exposed mouth remained neutral. She extended one elegant hand toward her daughter, and Princess Lyralei reluctantly surrendered the confiscated sketchbook. The exchange happened in complete silence, with only the soft whisper of fabric and the distant hum of the palace's energy systems providing background sound. The queen opened the sketchbook and examined Rebecca's drawing with genuine attention. Her fingers traced the edges of the pages carefully, and she spent long moments studying each detail. The artwork depicted the central fountain in the palace gardens with remarkable accuracy, capturing not just the physical structure but the way light played across the water and reflected off the surrounding crystalline surfaces. "This fountain was designed by my great-grandmother," Queen Seraphina said finally, her voice carrying the musical quality of her species but without any trace of condescension. She spent 12 years perfecting the mathematical relationships between water flow, light refraction, and harmonic resonance. "You have captured something that our own court artists often miss." Princess Lyralei's violet eyes widened in shock. The courtiers who had been laughing moments earlier now found themselves studying their feet or suddenly discovering urgent business elsewhere in the corridor. The reversal of fortune was so complete and unexpected that several of them began edging away from the central group entirely. Rebecca's voice came out small but clear. "What did I capture, Your Majesty?" "Joy." The queen's answer was simple and devastating. "This drawing shows someone discovering beauty for the first time. Our artists have technical skill beyond anything your species has achieved, but they have forgotten how to see with wonder." She closed the sketchbook and held it against her chest. "This is what art should do. It should celebrate the act of seeing." Captain Mitchell felt a surge of pride for the young girl's dignity throughout the ordeal. Rebecca had maintained her composure under attack, responded with honesty instead of defensiveness, and now stood receiving praise from one of the most powerful beings in known space. Her father would be proud, but more importantly, she had represented humanity with grace and strength. The queen turned her attention to Princess Lyralei, and the temperature in the corridor seemed to drop several degrees. "Explain your behavior." Princess Lyralei's carefully constructed confidence crumbled under her mother's steady gaze. I was merely pointing out the differences in our artistic traditions, Mother. The human child seemed to lack awareness of her limitations. I see. Queen Seraphina's tone remained perfectly level, but somehow that made it more terrifying than any shouted rebuke could have been. You believe that demonstrating superiority through cruelty represents our finest traditions? The question hung in the air like a blade waiting to fall. Princess Lyralei opened her mouth to respond, then closed it again as she realized that any answer would only deepen her predicament. The courtiers who hadn't already fled now pressed themselves against the walls, desperate to avoid being drawn into the royal confrontation. Your Majesty, Rebecca said quietly, causing every head to turn toward her. The human child stepped forward slightly, her green eyes meeting the Queen's masked gaze without flinching. Princess Lyralei wasn't wrong about my drawing having limitations. I don't understand dimensional harmony or chromatic resonance. I was just drawing what I saw. Queen Seraphina studied the human child with renewed interest. You defend someone who sought to humiliate you? She was telling the truth about my technical skills, Rebecca replied. I think maybe she just said it in a mean way because she forgot that learning starts with not knowing things. She glanced at Princess Lyralei. Everyone has to start somewhere. The profound simplicity of the statement created another moment of absolute silence. Captain Mitchell marveled at Rebecca's ability to extract wisdom from cruelty and transform a diplomatic incident into a lesson about growth and understanding. The child possessed natural diplomatic instincts that couldn't be taught in any academy. Princess Lyralei stared at the human girl with an expression of complete bewilderment. The concept of defending someone who had attacked her seemed to violate every principle of palace politics. Courtiers exchanged glances of confusion, unsure how to process this display of forgiveness from someone they had dismissed as inferior. Queen Seraphina nodded slowly, and when she spoke her voice carried approval that made several courtiers visibly relax. Wisdom often comes from unexpected sources. She opened the sketchbook again and found a blank page. Rebecca Adams, would you be willing to accept instruction in dimensional harmony and chromatic resonance? Rebecca's face lit up with genuine excitement. Yes, Your Majesty. I would love to learn. Then I will arrange for you to study with our finest artists during your stay. The Queen's announcement sent ripples of shock through the remaining courtiers. Such an honor was typically reserved for visiting dignitaries of the highest rank, not for the children of ambassadors. The Queen's decision to personally mentor Rebecca Adams created a seismic shift in palace dynamics that extended far beyond the immediate confrontation. Word spread through the crystalline corridors with the speed of light through fiber-optic cables, reaching every corner of the diplomatic quarters within minutes. Ambassador Adams received the news during his strategy session with the Zephyrian trade ministers, and his carefully maintained diplomatic composure nearly cracked under the weight of pride and relief. Captain Mitchell escorted Rebecca to her first lesson in the Royal Art Studios, a vast chamber located in the heart of the palace where natural sunlight combined with artificial illumination to create perfect working conditions. The walls displayed master works from across Zephyrian history, and the air hummed with creative energy that seemed almost tangible. Rebecca's excitement was infectious, and even the stern-faced guards found themselves smiling at her wonder. Master Thane, the court's senior artist, greeted his new student with ceremonial courtesy but obvious skepticism. His silver skin bore the intricate tattoos that marked him as one of the cultural elite, and his violet eyes held the weight of 3 centuries of artistic achievement. He had tutored royalty and trained the greatest talents of his generation, but never before had he been asked to work with a human child. Your Majesty has requested that I teach you our methods, Master Thane said, his voice carrying undertones of harmonic complexity that human ears could barely detect. I must warn you that our techniques require perception beyond your species' apparent limitations. Rebecca nodded eagerly, setting up her art supplies on the designated workspace. I understand. Princess Lyralei explained that I don't see things the same way you do, but Queen Seraphina said I captured something your artists sometimes miss, so maybe we can learn from each other. The suggestion that a human child might have something to teach a Zephyrian master artist was so audacious that Master Thane nearly laughed. Instead, he found himself curious about this small being who spoke with such confidence despite her obvious inexperience. He had lived long enough to recognize that wisdom often came from unexpected sources, Meanwhile, Princess Lyralei faced consequences that extended far beyond maternal disappointment. Queen Seraphina's public rebuke had damaged her standing among the court factions that typically supported her political ambitions. The princess found herself isolated in ways she had never experienced, with former allies suddenly too busy to acknowledge her presence and rivals openly smirking at her discomfort. The princess retreated to her private chambers, a luxurious suite overlooking the palace gardens where she had once plotted her rise to greater power. Now those same gardens reminded her of the human child's drawing and the genuine appreciation it had expressed. For the first time in her privileged life, Princess Lyralei was forced to confront the possibility that her behavior might have been fundamentally wrong. She stood at her window, watching the fountain that had inspired Rebecca's artwork, and found herself seeing it differently. The mathematical precision her great-great-grandmother had achieved was remarkable, but Rebecca had captured something else entirely. The human child had drawn the fountain as a thing of beauty, rather than as a demonstration of technical superiority. Back in the art studios, Rebecca's first lesson was progressing in ways that surprised everyone involved. Master Thane had begun with basic principles of dimensional harmony, expecting to spend weeks building foundational understanding. Instead, he discovered that Rebecca's intuitive grasp of spatial relationships allowed her to skip several preliminary stages entirely. "Remarkable," Master Thane murmured, as Rebecca successfully applied fourth-dimensional perspective to a simple geometric form. "Your mind processes spatial information in ways I have never encountered." Rebecca looked up from her work, her face flushed with concentration and joy. "It's like music, but with shapes instead of sounds. The patterns want to fit together in certain ways." She added another line to her drawing, and the entire composition suddenly achieved perfect balance. Master Thane studied the drawing with growing amazement. The human child had intuitively discovered principles that took most Zephyrian students years to master. Her approach was completely unorthodox, but the results spoke for themselves. She was seeing dimensional relationships not as mathematical concepts but as natural harmonies. Captain Mitchell observed from his position near the door, maintaining his protective stance while marveling at Rebecca's rapid progress. The girl's natural talent combined with Zephyrian instruction was producing artwork that transcended anything he had imagined possible. More importantly, her enthusiasm and humility were winning over instructors who had initially viewed her as an unwelcome burden. Word of Rebecca's artistic breakthrough reached Queen Seraphina within hours, carried by the network of palace staff who served as informal information brokers. The Queen's satisfaction was evident to those who knew how to read her subtle expressions, and she made a point of visiting the art studios personally to observe her human protégé's progress. The Queen arrived during Rebecca's third lesson, entering the studio with her characteristic grace and immediately drawing the attention of everyone present. Master Thane bowed deeply, and Rebecca scrambled to her feet with art supplies scattered around her workspace. Her current drawing showed clear evidence of rapidly developing skill combined with her unique perspective. "Show me what you have learned," Queen Seraphina said, settling into a chair designed for royal observation of artistic instruction. Rebecca presented her latest work, a study of light patterns that incorporated both traditional Zephyrian techniques and her own intuitive understanding of harmony. The drawing seemed to glow with inner light, creating an effect that Master Thane had been trying to achieve for decades. The combination of alien instruction and human perception had produced something entirely new. Queen Seraphina examined the drawing in silence, her fingers tracing the flowing lines that somehow captured both technical precision and emotional resonance. When she finally spoke, her words carried weight that would echo throughout the palace for months to come. "This represents the future of artistic cooperation between our species." The Queen's announcement was both praise and prophecy. "Master Thane, I want you to document every aspect of Rebecca's learning process. Her approach may revolutionize our understanding of creative expression." The implications of the Queen's statement rippled outward from the art studios to affect every aspect of the ongoing diplomatic negotiations. If humans possessed unique perspectives that could enhance Zephyrian achievements, then the proposed alliance suddenly held possibilities that neither side had previously considered. What had begun as a trade agreement was evolving into something approaching cultural fusion. Princess Lyralei learned of these developments through her network of informants. each report deepening her understanding of how catastrophically she had misjudged the situation in the corridor. Her attempt to demonstrate superiority through cruelty had not only failed but had actively hindered her own interests. The human child she had mocked was now positioned as a bridge between two civilizations. The princess made a decision that would have seemed impossible just days earlier. She requested a private audience with Rebecca Adams. The meeting took place in the palace's neutral conference chamber, a space designed for diplomatic encounters, where neither party held territorial advantage. Princess Lyralei arrived first, her usual entourage replaced by a single protocol advisor who maintained respectful distance. Rebecca entered, accompanied by Captain Mitchell, her art supplies carried in a leather satchel that had become her constant companion. The two girls faced each other across a table carved from a single piece of crystal, the surface reflecting their images back at them in prismatic fragments that seemed symbolically appropriate. Princess Lyralei had rehearsed this moment dozens of times, but faced with Rebecca's open, curious expression, all her prepared speeches seemed inadequate. "I owe you an apology," Princess Lyralei said finally, the words coming out more forcefully than she had intended. The admission of wrongdoing felt foreign on her tongue, but she pressed forward. "My behavior in the corridor was unworthy of my position and my people's values." Rebecca studied the alien princess's face, seeing past the perfect features to the genuine discomfort beneath. "You don't have to apologize to me. You were right about my technical limitations." "No, I wasn't right." Princess Lyralei's violet eyes flashed with something that might have been anger directed inward. "I was using truth as a weapon instead of a tool for understanding. There is a difference between honest assessment and deliberate cruelty." The distinction was subtle but crucial, and Rebecca nodded her understanding. She had felt the difference in that corridor, even if she hadn't been able to articulate it at the time. There was a way to acknowledge limitations that encouraged growth, and another way that sought only to diminish. "Your mother taught me something important," Rebecca said quietly. "She said that art should celebrate the act of seeing. I think maybe criticism should do the same thing. Help people see better instead of making them feel bad about what they can't see yet." Princess Lyralei absorbed the words in silence, recognizing wisdom that her years of advanced education had somehow failed to provide. The human child possessed an intuitive understanding of constructive engagement that put her own sophisticated cruelty to shame. "I have watched your progress in the art studios," Princess Lyralei continued, steering the conversation towards safer ground. "Master Thane says you are achieving things that should be impossible for your species." There was no mockery in her voice now, only genuine curiosity mixed with something that might have been envy. Rebecca's face lit up with excitement at the mention of her studies. "It's amazing how much there is to learn. Master Thane showed me how to see different kinds of light, and how shapes can exist in more than 3 dimensions. I never knew any of that was possible." She paused, studying Princess Lyralei's expression. "Would you like to see what I'm working on?" The invitation caught the princess completely off guard. After days of isolation and political consequences, someone was offering to share something precious with her. The gesture was so unexpectedly generous that Princess Lyralei found herself struggling to respond appropriately. "You would show me your work?" she asked, her voice smaller than it had been moments before. "Of course." Rebecca opened her satchel and withdrew her latest drawing, a complex study that combined architectural precision with flowing organic forms. "I was trying to draw the way the palace feels instead of just how it looks." Princess Lyralei examined the drawing with growing amazement. The artwork somehow captured the emotional essence of her childhood home, revealing aspects of familiar spaces that she had never consciously noticed. The human child had seen their palace with fresh eyes and found beauty that even lifelong residents had overlooked. "This is extraordinary," Princess Lyralei whispered, her earlier arrogance completely forgotten. "How did you know to include the harmonic resonance patterns in the structural elements?" Rebecca looked puzzled for a moment, then brightened with understanding. "Oh, you mean those wavy lines? I could hear something when I was drawing, like the walls were singing very quietly, so I tried to show what the song looked like." The casual revelation left Princess Lyralei speechless. Rebecca had intuitively perceived and artistically represented acoustic phenomena that required sophisticated instruments to detect. Her ability to translate between sensory experiences suggested cognitive capabilities that challenged every assumption about human limitations. Captain Mitchell watched the exchange with growing satisfaction, recognizing that Rebecca had achieved something remarkable. She had transformed a diplomatic incident into an opportunity for genuine connection between two very different individuals. The princess who had mocked her was now seeking her guidance, and the dynamic had shifted completely. "Would you teach me?" Princess Lyralei asked suddenly, the words escaping before she could consider their implications. "I know our artistic traditions, but I want to understand how you see things differently." Rebecca's smile was radiant with delight. "I would love to learn together. Master Thane says the best way to understand something is to try to explain it to someone else." She gestured toward the drawing. "Maybe you could help me understand dimensional harmony better, and I could show you how I listen to the shapes." The proposal represented a fundamental shift in their relationship. From antagonist and victim to collaborative partners, Princess Lyralei nodded slowly, recognizing that accepting instruction from the human child would complete her transformation from cruel critic to genuine student. The sound of approaching footsteps in the corridor announced Queen Seraphina's arrival, though neither girl had requested royal intervention. The Queen entered the conference chamber flanked by her advisors, her presence immediately commanding attention from everyone in the room. Her timing was impeccable, arriving at the exact moment when reconciliation had transformed potential enemies into tentative allies. "I came to observe the results of Princess Lyralei's requested meeting," Queen Seraphina announced, settling into the chair reserved for royal presence. "I am pleased to see that wisdom has prevailed over pride." Princess Lyralei's face flushed with embarrassment and gratitude in equal measure. Her mother's public acknowledgement of her attempt to make amends carried enormous weight within palace politics, potentially opening doors that her earlier behavior had closed. The afternoon that followed would be remembered as a turning point in interspecies relations, though none of the participants fully understood its significance at the time. Rebecca and Princess Lyralei spent hours sharing techniques and perspectives, their collaboration producing artwork that combined the best aspects of both their approaches. Master Thane observed from a respectful distance, taking detailed notes that would eventually form the basis for new instructional methods. Queen Seraphina watched it all with the satisfaction of a leader who recognized historical moments as they unfolded. The alliance between Earth and Zephyr would be stronger because of what had happened in this chamber, built on genuine understanding rather than political necessity alone. The human child's grace under pressure had revealed possibilities that neither species had imagined. As the day drew to a close, Princess Lyralei walked with Rebecca through the palace gardens, their conversation flowing with the easy camaraderie of shared discovery. The fountain that had inspired the original drawing sparkled in the late afternoon light, but now both girls saw it with eyes educated by their afternoon of artistic collaboration. "I have learned something important today," Princess Lyralei said as they paused beside the fountain. "Excellence achieved through cruelty is not excellence at all. It is merely superiority, and superiority without wisdom becomes a prison." Rebecca nodded thoughtfully, trailing her fingers in the fountain's spray. "My father says that the strongest people are the ones who help others become strong too. I think maybe that's what your mother was trying to teach us." The simple wisdom of the statement resonated in the crystal air around them, carried by harmonic frequencies that seemed to whisper approval of their newfound understanding. Captain Mitchell maintained his watchful distance, but his rigid posture had relaxed as he recognized that his charge was no longer in any danger from the alien princess. The sun began its descent beyond the palace dome, casting colored shadows through the crystalline architecture that both girls now understood in ways they hadn't that morning. Their friendship had been forged through conflict and tempered by humility, creating bonds that would endure long after the diplomatic negotiations concluded, Queen Seraphina observed from her private balcony, her masked face turned toward the garden, where two young beings from different worlds had discovered that understanding was always possible when pride stepped aside for curiosity. The lesson they had learned together would ripple outward through both their civilizations, carrying the promise of cooperation built on mutual respect rather than dominance. The evening brought a formal dinner celebrating the successful advancement of the alliance negotiations, with representatives from both species gathering in the Great Hall to toast their mutual progress. Rebecca sat beside her father, wearing her best dress and trying not to stare too obviously at the incredible alien dignitaries around the table. Princess Lyralei, positioned according to royal protocol several seats away, caught her eye and smiled genuinely for the first time since their meeting. When Ambassador Adams rose to offer the closing toast, his words carried pride for his daughter's role in strengthening the bonds between their worlds. "To Rebecca Adams," he said, his voice ringing clearly through the crystal chamber, "who reminded us all that the greatest diplomacy begins with seeing the beauty in what we do not yet understand." The toast was echoed in harmonic frequencies that made the very walls sing with approval, and Rebecca's face glowed with happiness that transcended any artistic achievement. She had transformed a moment of cruelty into an opportunity for growth, and in doing so had helped build bridges between worlds that would strengthen both civilizations for generations to come. Captain Mitchell raised his own glass in silent tribute to the young girl whose courage and wisdom had turned potential disaster into diplomatic triumph, knowing that he had witnessed something far more important than successful negotiations. He had seen the birth of understanding between beings who might have remained forever divided by fear and misunderstanding. The evening concluded with Queen Seraphina's final words, delivered with the authority of absolute sovereignty, but touched with genuine warmth. Let it be recorded that the alliance between Earth and Zephyr was strengthened not by political necessity, but by the wisdom of children who chose understanding over pride. The Crystal Palace echoed with harmonics of approval that seemed to promise a future built on cooperation, respect, and the recognition that true strength came not from demonstrating superiority, but from lifting others to achieve their greatest potential. Rebecca Adams had learned to see with new eyes. Princess Lyralei had learned to teach with kindness, and their example had shown two civilizations how to grow together rather than simply coexist. The drawing that had started it all was later displayed in the palace's gallery of historical artifacts, not as an example of human limitation, but as a symbol of the joy that comes from seeing beauty for the first time and sharing that vision with others who have forgotten how to wonder.